You can't live here. That's the very first sentence I ever heard from my new neighbor, and it wasn't whispered over a fence or muttered with suspicion. No, she screamed it, full force, right across the quiet street. The echo of her voice carried so far it startled a dog that had been napping on someone's porch. I hadn't even stepped out of my car yet. My keys were still jingling in my pocket, my smile still plastered on my face from the excitement of finally closing on a home after months of exhausting searching. But all that joy evaporated in a second when this woman charged across her yard like I'd stolen something from her. Her finger was pointed straight at me, shaking with rage. "That's my family's property. You can't live here." I remember sitting there frozen, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my heart hammering in my chest. 5 minutes earlier, I'd been celebrating in my car, texting my wife Bate, "It's official. We did it. The house is ours." And now here I was, being treated like a criminal for the crime of buying a house. The strange part? My new home wasn't even in her HOA. I knew that for a fact. That's partly why Bate and I had jumped on it. We'd been outbid over and over, watching homes slip through our fingers until this one appeared out of nowhere. Perfect neighborhood, beautiful yard, priced below market. Almost too good to be true. That should have been the first red flag, but all I saw at the time was opportunity. I rolled my window down, trying to be polite, because that's how I was raised. "Hi there," I said with a nervous laugh. "I'm Frank, your new neighbor, just closed on the house today." The reaction I got will never leave me. Her voice shot up like a siren, cracking with fury. "No, you can't live here. That sale is illegal. That house belongs to me." Imagine the sound of gravel crunching under someone's boots as they stomp toward you with pure rage in their eyes. That's exactly how it felt. The whole neighborhood could see her now, blinds twitching, curtains pulling back, faces peeking out. And me? I felt like a stranger being put on trial in a place I hadn't even moved into yet. I fumbled for the folder on the passenger seat, the deed with my name on it. Maybe if I showed her the paperwork, she'd calm down. Maybe she was confused. "Ma'am," I said carefully, holding the documents so she could see, "I bought this house legally. Everything in order. Here's the deed." She looked at the papers like they were blank sheets of paper. Then her eyes snapped back to mine. Cold, calculated. "That thief stole my inheritance. You're part of the conspiracy now." Conspiracy. That word sent a chill straight through me. Before I could even ask what she meant, she whipped out her phone and barked into it like a drill sergeant. "I need all board members here now. Someone has fraudulently purchased property in our neighborhood." Board members? I sat there stunned, watching her pace in her yard. Within 15 minutes, cars started pulling up. People in polo shirts, clipboards under their arms, gathering on her lawn like they were holding an emergency trial. And I hadn't even unlocked my front door yet. They called themselves the HOA board. They looked more professional than her, at least. They checked my deed, compared records, nodded grimly, and confirmed what I already knew. I was the legal owner. But one of them said something that made my stomach sink. "This is the third ownership dispute we've had with this house in the past few years. You might find integration into this community difficult." Third dispute, difficult integration. I didn't even know what to say. Neighbors kept peeking out, whispering, pointing in my direction. The kind of whispers you feel in your bones even if you can't hear the words. Suspicion in their eyes, like I'd walked into some secret that wasn't meant for outsiders. As the board left, my new neighbor, Nicole, I'd later learn her name, shouted one last thing that still rings in my ears. "Enjoy it while you can, Frank. That house will return to its proper ownership." The way she said my name, like she'd been studying me, like she knew more than she should, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up. I sat in my car long after everyone left, staring at the house that was supposed to be my dream. A perfect 2-story colonial with autumn leaves scattered across the lawn, but now it felt like I'd just stepped into a war zone. And in that silence, with only the creak of a nearby gate swaying in the wind and the faint chatter of neighbors drifting back inside, one question gnawed at me. How did she know the exact minute I closed on this house? The next morning, my phone buzzed before sunrise. A message from an unknown number. "Don't trust anything Nicole Nelson tells you about that house. She's dangerous. Document everything." My blood ran cold. Someone out there had seen what happened the day before, maybe even watched her ambush me, and now they were warning me. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor venting. The tone was sharp, urgent, like someone who knew more than they should. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at the glowing screen. Bates stirred beside me. "Who's texting you at 6 in the morning?" she mumbled. I showed her the message, and she sat up straight, instantly awake. "Frank, this is serious. You need to be careful." Careful? How do you stay careful when you don't even know what game you've just been dragged into? That entire day, I couldn't focus on anything else. At work, the sound of coworkers chatting in the hallway faded behind the noise in my head. Every clack of the keyboard felt hollow. When I stepped outside for lunch, even the rustle of dry autumn leaves on the sidewalk made me turn my head, paranoid someone was watching. That night, I sat at my desk with my laptop, determined to get answers. The glow from the screen lit up stacks of unopened boxes in our new living room. Bate moved quietly in the kitchen, unpacking mugs, trying to pretend this was normal life. But it was. I dug through county property records. Dorothy Miller had owned our house since the 1970s. She passed away childless. Her nephew David sold it immediately. No Nelson family anywhere in the records. Nicole's claim of family inheritance was pure fiction, a complete lie. But the lie was what scared me most. What scared me was her precision. She knew my closing time down to the hour. She knew when to storm out. That wasn't chance, that was preparation. And then I started noticing something else. Nicole wasn't just glaring through her windows anymore. She was tracking. The faint metallic snap of a measuring tape echoed every afternoon. The scratch of a pen on paper. I'd see her shadow flicker behind blinds at odd hours, her phone raised just long enough to take photos of my car, my garbage cans, even the way I stacked moving boxes on the porch. Not nosiness, surveillance. The click of my new Ring doorbell camera was the only thing that gave me peace of mind. I installed it late one evening, the smell of fresh paint still hanging in the hallway as Bate unpacked dishes. Within 48 hours, it caught her red-handed. On my property, tape measure in hand, jotting notes about how far my trash bin sat from the curb. I stepped out to confront her, my voice calm but sharp. "Nicole, you're on my property without permission." She didn't flinch, didn't blink. "I'm conducting official compliance inspections. Your refuse containers violate setback requirements." Compliance inspections. I blinked in disbelief. "This house isn't even in your HOA. It predates it by 15 years. Her response was a bombshell. Grandfather clauses expire when properties change hands. New owners must comply with current ordinances. Ordinances, not HOA rules. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just playing neighborhood enforcer. She was filing complaints with the city itself, weaponizing bureaucracy, turning paperwork into a weapon sharper than any knife. The thought made me dizzy. How many families had she broken this way? That night, as I sifted through more records, the phone rang. A distorted voice crackled through, disguised like something out of a thriller. "She monitors courthouse computers. Don't research from public terminals, do it at home." I froze. Whoever this was, they knew exactly what I was doing. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. She did the same thing to the previous 3 families. It starts with property research, then harassment, then lawsuits. They all sold, below market value, all to the same trust. The line went dead. I sat in silence, my hands trembling on the keyboard. 3 families, all forced out. All their homes ending up in the hands of one mysterious buyer's trust. Nicole wasn't just an angry neighbor. She wasn't just a busybody with too much free time. She was running a scheme. And I had just become her next target. 2 days later, I found myself sitting in the living room at midnight, every lamp off, just the faint blue glow of the security camera feed on my phone. The house was silent except for the old radiator clicking now and then, but outside, I could hear her. The crunch of gravel under deliberate footsteps, the faint scrape of metal against my fence. Nicole was at it again. She thought she was invisible in the dark, but my night vision camera caught everything. A blurred figure kneeling beside my trash bin, pulling out a tape measure, jotting something in a small spiral notebook. It would have been laughable if it weren't so disturbing. Bate whispered from the stairs, her robe tied tight. "Frank, please come to bed. This is getting out of hand." But how could I sleep when my neighbor treated my property like her personal project? How could I ignore the growing sense that this wasn't random obsession? It was methodical. The next morning, the proof landed on my doorstep. A folded slip of paper shoved under my doorframe, the handwriting rushed but sharp. "She's preparing to frame you, collecting evidence to plant. Be careful." I stared at it so long I barely noticed the autumn chill seeping in through the open door. Someone out there, my mysterious protector, was warning me again. Nicole wasn't satisfied with harassment. She was escalating. Later that afternoon, the phone rang at work. My boss's voice was uneasy. "Frank, I've received some concerning calls. Apparently, your behavior as a neighbor is disrupting people's ability to work from home. They claim your presence is damaging the company's reputation with local clients." My blood boiled. Nicole had gone after my job now. It wasn't enough to try to steal my house. She was trying to strip away everything tied to it. That evening, as I walked the perimeter of my yard with my phone flashlight, I noticed it again. The sound of a gate creaking shut, 2 houses down. A shadow darting between shrubs. Neighbors watching silently, then quickly turning away when I met their eyes. The whole street felt like a stage, and Nicole was directing the play. When I finally confronted her face-to-face the next morning, my camera rolling discreetly from my shirt pocket, her response left me chilled. "You've been trespassing on my property," I said, steadying my voice. Her lips curled into a smirk. "No, Frank, I've been conducting inspections for the good of the neighborhood." Her tone was calm, cold, practiced. That's when I realized she wasn't improvising. This was a script she'd rehearsed many times before. The anonymous caller was right. I wasn't her first. That night my phone buzzed again. A disguised voice, low and deliberate. "She's building a nuisance case. The city violations, the workplace complaints, the witness statements she's coaching, it's all for one reason: to sue you, to force you out." I sat there in my dark kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the silence, the caller's words sinking in like lead. She's done it before, always the same pattern. People break under the pressure. They sell for less than the house is worth. And she, the voice paused, she buys it through her trust. I gripped the counter, the cool laminate digging into my palms. "Why me? Why my house?" "Because you're strong enough to last longer than the others," the caller said simply. And then the line went dead. For the first time, I understood the scale of what I was dealing with. Nicole wasn't a neighbor gone mad. She was a predator who'd perfected her tactics to appear legitimate. To outsiders, she looked like a concerned citizen protecting property values. But the truth? She was dismantling families piece by piece until selling felt like their only escape. And now she was dismantling me. That night, as wind rattled the loose latch of the side gate and dry leaves scraped across the pavement, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to be her next victim. If she wanted to play this game with paperwork, false accusations, and legal traps, fine. But I was done playing defense. I was going to fight back. 3 days later, my nerves were hanging by a thread. Every creak of the floorboards in our house made me flinch. Every slam of a car door outside made me look through the blinds. I wasn't paranoid, at least not without reason. Nicole had turned surveillance into an art form. I'd catch her reflection in my window at odd hours, phone raised, recording me unloading groceries. She lingered by the fence line, her pen scratching furiously on a clipboard. The sound of that pen, scratch, 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 was constant now, the background noise of my life. Bate tried to keep me grounded. She'd put on soft music while cooking, light candles in the evening, try to remind me we had a home worth fighting for. But even she couldn't deny it anymore. When we stepped onto the porch together one morning, there was Nicole, crouched in the grass, measuring the angle of our downspout as if it were evidence in a trial. I confronted her again, my phone recording, voice tight. "Nicole, you can't keep doing this." Her eyes flicked up, steady, unblinking. "You'll be gone soon, Frank, one way or another." The way she said it, calm, almost bored, was worse than if she'd shouted. That night, another message slipped under my door. She's collecting items to plant on your property. Stolen goods, be ready. I read it 3 times, my hands trembling. My mysterious protector wasn't exaggerating. Nicole wasn't satisfied with harassment. She was preparing to destroy me. The next day, the pattern became clearer. Strange vehicles parked outside her house at odd hours, the rumble of garage doors late into the night, her voice carrying through the cold autumn air during heated phone calls. I couldn't catch every word, but I heard enough. Evidence, police report, restraining order. She wasn't bluffing, she was building something. The following week, my boss called me into a closed-door meeting. "Frank," he said, lowering his voice, "someone has been calling repeatedly, claiming your behavior is threatening the neighborhood. They said our company should reconsider your employment." Nicole was trying to take my livelihood too. The audacity left me shaking with rage. That night, I laid everything out across the dining table. Property records, violation notices, text messages. The note slipped under my door. My Ring camera footage played on loop, showing Nicole trespassing, coaching neighbors, scribbling on clipboards. Bate sat across from me, her chin resting on her hand, silent but exhausted. "Frank," she whispered, "what if this is too big for us? What if we can't stop her?" Her words cut deep because I'd been asking myself the same thing. But then I remembered the anonymous caller's voice, calm and steady. She's done this before, always the same pattern. If Nicole had done this to other families, then exposing her wasn't just about saving my house. It was about stopping her from destroying anyone else. I doubled down, installed more cameras, motion activated with night vision, kept a log of every strange sound outside, even wrote down the exact times the gate creaked open when no one was supposed to be there. Then came the breaking point. Late one evening, the phone rang again. The distorted voice, my anonymous protector. "She's escalating," the caller said. "She's preparing witnesses. She'll claim you threatened her. She'll push for a restraining order to get you legally removed." I sank into my chair, the weight of those words pressing down like cement. A restraining order. Yes, she's used it before, it works. Families can't fight from outside their homes, they sell. I rubbed my temples, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the silence. Nicole wasn't just harassing me. She was weaponizing the legal system itself. And that was when something inside me hardened. If Nicole wanted to paint me as the villain, I'd make sure the truth spoke louder than her lies. I'd been passive too long, always reacting, always scrambling, but the next move was mine. Bate touched my hand across the table, her eyes searching mine. "What are you going to do?" I looked around at the stacks of evidence, the camera feeds glowing on my phone, the folders of public records I'd printed until my printer jammed. "I'm going to fight her where she thinks she's strongest," I said. "In court." The first time my attorney, Anna Clark, heard the full story, she leaned back in her chair and let out a slow breath. Her office smelled faintly of old books and coffee, the kind of place where serious battles were planned. "Frank," she said carefully, flipping through the stack of violation notices I'd brought in, "this isn't just harassment. This is systematic. I've seen cases like this before, but rarely this organized." I leaned forward, my palms pressed against my knees. "She's not just a neighbor with too much free time. She's building a case. She wants me out." Attorney Clark nodded. "Restraining orders, nuisance lawsuits, false code violations, it's a playbook. She's setting you up to look like the aggressor." Her words hit me like a punch. Aggressor. That's exactly what Nicole wanted, to flip the narrative, to make me the villain in my own story. On the drive home, the late autumn sun was already sinking behind the houses, the shadows of bare trees stretching across the quiet street. I pulled into the driveway, headlights cutting across the lawn, and there she was, Nicole, standing on her porch, arms crossed, watching. The sight of her calm smirk as I stepped out of my car made my stomach twist. She knew what she was doing. She wanted me to snap, to give her the outburst she could parade in front of a judge. Instead, I walked straight inside without a word. That night, the disguised voice called again. She's recruiting board members, it warned. She's coaching them, they'll testify against you. I closed my eyes, the hum of the streetlight outside filtering through the blinds. Why are you helping me? I asked. The voice didn't hesitate. Because you can fight her, and if you don't, she'll keep doing this to families forever. The line went dead. I barely slept. Every sound of the neighborhood seemed louder than usual. The creak of the side gate, the distant thud of a car door, even the faint murmur of Nicole's voice drifting through her open window as she made late-night calls. The next day, I caught something on my cameras that made my blood boil. Nicole, standing in her garage, surrounded by HOA board members, clipboards in hand, printed papers spread across folding tables. She wasn't just gossiping, she was running strategy sessions. The footage showed her pointing at my house, assigning tasks. One neighbor was told to document every car that visited me. Another was instructed to monitor my lawn. They left her garage like soldiers leaving a briefing, clipboards tucked under their arms, faces grim. She was building an army. I forwarded the footage straight to Attorney Clark. Her response came quick. This is good. This shows conspiracy. Keep documenting. But Nicole wasn't slowing down. The very next evening, I found a bright orange notice taped to my front door. Violation, unsafe storage of refuse containers. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh, but the dread hit me just as quickly. She wasn't stopping. She was accelerating. Bates sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands. Frank, this is too much. I can't take the stress. Every day it's something new. I sat beside her, my hand on her shoulder. I know, but this is exactly what she wants, for us to break, for us to give up. I'm not letting her win. That night, another text from the anonymous number came through. She's planning to file for a restraining order within the week. Prepare your defense now. I showed it to Attorney Clark the next morning. She tapped her pen against the desk, thinking. Then she looked at me with a determination I hadn't seen before. Frank, we're not going to wait for her to strike. We're going to flip this. We'll file first. Her plan was bold, aggressive. We'd request a restraining order against Nicole based on her harassment, present the footage of her trespassing and coaching witnesses, and expose her property scheme in court. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. But hope didn't erase fear, because deep down, I knew Nicole wasn't going to sit quietly while we dismantled her empire. And when predators are cornered, that's when they're most dangerous. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant, a place where lives could be unraveled with a single ruling. I sat at the defendant's table, my palms slick with sweat, the hum of the fluorescent lights above drilling into my nerves. Across the aisle sat Nicole, perfectly composed, hair neatly styled, a conservative navy blazer hugging her shoulders. To anyone who didn't know better, she looked like a model citizen. But I did know better, and the sight of her calm, rehearsed smile made my blood boil. Her attorney shuffled papers with practiced ease. They were ready to spin their story, to turn me into the villain. When the judge entered, the room rose as one. Nicole clasped her hands together like she was about to deliver a sermon, her eyes shimmering as though she were moments away from tears. And then she began. Your Honor, she said, her voice cracking in just the right places, living next to Frank Collins has been a nightmare. He has threatened me, harassed me, created a hostile environment. I don't feel safe in my own home. Theatrical sobs echoed in the courtroom. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. It was a performance, a flawless one. Her attorney played video clips next, snippets from my own security cameras. Me stepping onto my lawn, my voice raised, my expression tense. Stripped of context, it made me look aggressive. The neighbors she had coached were ready too, murmuring affirmations, prepared to testify that they'd seen me act hostile. For a moment, I felt the weight of defeat pressing down. This was her trap. She'd been building it for months, maybe years. But then Attorney Clark rose, calm and deliberate. She glanced at me, then at the judge. Your Honor, she said, the petitioner's videos are incomplete. We have the full, unedited footage. The clicking of my laptop echoed through the hushed room as the larger screen lit up. Footage rolled, showing Nicole trespassing, measuring my garbage cans, crossing onto my lawn in the dead of night, provoking confrontations. Then the same moments Nicole had presented, but this time in their entirety, showing her aggression first, her manipulations, her smirk before her crocodile tears. The shift in the room was palpable. Nicole's attorney shifted uncomfortably, the judge's eyebrows furrowed, and Nicole, her hands tightened into fists on her lap, her mask cracking just slightly. But that wasn't all. As the last clip ended, my phone buzzed. A text from my anonymous protector. Check your email now, evidence that changes everything. During a recess, I showed it to Attorney Clark. Photographs, clear as day, Nicole sitting at a cafe with the city code inspector, envelopes sliding across the table. Cash exchanged, meeting after meeting, month after month. We walked back into the courtroom with a quiet fire burning in our steps. Your Honor, Attorney Clark said, holding up the photos, we have new evidence suggesting Ms. Nelson has engaged in bribery of a public official. The very inspector who filed the violations against my client is pictured here, accepting payments from her. The judge leaned forward, studying the images for several long seconds. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint shuffle of papers. Nicole's confidence melted, her face drained of color. Her attorney tried to object, but the judge's tone cut sharp. Objection overruled. This court takes allegations of public corruption very seriously. Not only am I dismissing this restraining order, but I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for further investigation. The gavel struck, sharp, final. Nicole froze, her mouth slightly open, unable to form words. The predator who had orchestrated every move suddenly looked like prey caught in a trap she never saw coming. As people filed out of the courtroom, whispers spreading like wildfire, I stayed seated for a moment, my pulse hammering in my ears. Relief washed over me, but beneath it, a deeper unease remained. Because whoever had sent me those photos wasn't just some helpful neighbor. These were professional quality surveillance shots. Multiple angles, perfect timing, months of patient tracking. Someone had been watching Nicole long before I ever moved in. And I couldn't shake the chilling realization. I wasn't just Nicole's target. I was someone else's bait. The night after court, I didn't sleep. Not a second. The ruling should have given me peace, but instead it cracked something open inside me. The house was silent, but my head was buzzing with questions. Who had been watching Nicole all this time? Why did they choose me to expose her? And more importantly, what did they want in return? At 3 a.m., the faint creak of the front gate jolted me upright. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept near the bed and crept to the window, heart thudding. Through the glass, I caught sight of a figure slipping a small envelope under my door. By the time I yanked it open, the street was empty. Just the whisper of wind through bare branches and the soft tap of a neighbor's flagpole rope against the metal pole. Inside the envelope was a note, handwritten steady. Meet me at the old service road, 9 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone. Bate found me staring at it at the kitchen table, the smell of leftover coffee clinging to the air. She looked pale. Frank, what if this is a trap? Her fear was real, and I shared it, but the bigger fear was not knowing. Whoever this was, they'd saved me in court. They had evidence I couldn't have gotten on my own, and deep down I needed answers. The next evening I parked on the cracked pavement of the abandoned service road. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky a bruise of purple and gray. My breath clouded in the cold air as I waited, headlights off, nerves coiled tight. A figure approached from the shadows. A man, maybe mid-40s, wearing a heavy coat and a baseball cap pulled low. He stopped a few feet away, hands visible, voice calm. My name, Daniel, he said, and you're not the first family she's tried to destroy. I gripped the steering wheel, my pulse pounding. Then who are you? Why help me? He glanced over his shoulder, scanning the empty road before speaking again. Nicole's part of a bigger scheme. The Nelson Trust has been acquiring properties across the county for years. Always the same pattern. She drives families out, files lawsuits, floods them with violations until they sell cheap. Then the trust buys the property, flips it, and pockets the profit. The words hit me like a hammer. So this isn't personal. Daniel shook his head. It's business, ruthless business, but she enjoys it too much. The power trip, that's her weakness. The weight of his words sank in as the night grew colder around us. All those families before me hadn't just been unlucky, they'd been prey. I narrowed my eyes. How do you know all this? He hesitated. For a moment I saw the flicker of something haunted in his expression. Because she did it to my sister. Nicole drove her out, ruined her credit, took her house. My sister never recovered. I swore I'd never let it happen again. The silence between us was heavy, filled only by the distant sound of a train horn cutting across the night. Daniel pulled a small USB drive from his pocket and placed it on the hood of my car. Everything you need is on here: emails, financial records, property transfers. It proves the trust is a shell company. Nicole's just one of their hammers. I stared at the drive, my breath catching. Why give this to me? Why not take it to the police? His jaw tightened. Because the trust has people everywhere, inspectors, clerks, even law enforcement. You saw it yourself with the bribed inspector. If this is going to work, it has to come from someone she underestimates. Someone ordinary. Ordinary, the word stung, but I understood. Nicole thought I was just another target, just another homeowner who'd eventually fold. That was my cover. Before I could respond, Daniel stepped back into the shadows. Be careful, Frank. Now that you've won in court, she'll be desperate. That's when she's most dangerous. And just like that, he was gone. I drove home in silence, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. The street was dark when I pulled into my driveway, but Nicole's porch light was on, her silhouette framed in the window. Watching, always watching. For the first time, I didn't look away. Because now I had something she didn't know about. Leverage. The next morning, the air felt different. Crisp, charged, like the calm before a storm. I sat at the dining table, coffee steaming in my mug, the USB drive in front of me. A small piece of plastic, yet heavy with the weight of ruined families, forged documents, and years of greed. Bate joined me, her robe wrapped tight, her eyes searching mine. So what now? She asked softly. I stared at the drive. Now we finish this. Attorney Clark didn't flinch when I laid the evidence before her. She clicked through files, one by one, emails, wire transfers, scanned property deeds. The Nelson Trust was a spider web, and Nicole was just one strand, pulling families into its trap. Clark leaned back, a slow smile tugging at her lips. Frank, this isn't just a defense anymore. This is prosecution material. Fraud, conspiracy, racketeering. For the first time in weeks, my chest loosened. We weren't on the run anymore. We were going on the offensive. The district attorney's office took the case faster than I expected. Maybe Daniel had been right. Maybe corruption had seeped deep, but with undeniable evidence, even their hands were tied. A grand jury was convened within a month. The morning of Nicole's arrest, I stood at my window, blinds drawn just enough to see. 2 black SUVs rolled up. Plainclothes officers stepped out, their boots crunching against frosted grass. Nicole emerged from her front door, still in her silk robe, her face pale as they read her the charges. Fraud, harassment, conspiracy to defraud homeowners. Her scream cut through the crisp morning air, a shrill echo bouncing off every house on the block. This is my neighborhood. You can't do this to me. But they could, and they did. Neighbors who had once peered through curtains with suspicion now stood openly on their porches, watching the queen of their HOA dragged away in handcuffs. Some whispered, others shook their heads. A few, quietly, almost shamefully, clapped. Bate slipped her arm through mine, her voice barely above a whisper. It's over. But I knew better. With people like Nicole, the show didn't end when the curtain dropped. It lingered in echoes and scars. Weeks passed and the neighborhood began to change. The constant surveillance stopped. The scratch of Nicole's pen, the creak of the gate at 2 a.m., the staged confrontations, gone. The silence was almost unnerving at first, but then it settled into something peaceful. Bate planted flowers along the walkway. I finally unpacked the last of the boxes. Life began to feel like ours again. One chilly evening, as I took the trash bins to the curb, a man across the street nodded at me. He'd never spoken to me before, not once since the day I moved in. But now he crossed the street, hands in his jacket pockets. "Glad you didn't give up," he said quietly. "Others did, you stuck it out." I nodded, unsure how to respond, but the look in his eyes, a mix of guilt and relief, told me everything. This neighborhood had been living under Nicole's shadow long before I ever arrived. Later that night, I received one last message from Daniel, just 4 words: "She won't be back." I never saw him again, never learned his last name, but I didn't need to. He wasn't looking for thanks. He was looking for justice, for his sister, for every family Nicole had broken. And in helping me, maybe he finally found a piece of it. Months later, as spring rolled in, I stood on my porch one Saturday morning. The gate creaked as a breeze swept through, but this time it didn't make me tense. It just sounded like what it was, an old gate in need of oil. I sipped my coffee, sunlight spilling across the lawn, and thought about everything we'd endured. Sometimes, the strongest people aren't the ones who fight the loudest. They're the ones who refuse to move when the storm tries to push them out. Nicole thought she could take everything from me. My home, my peace, my dignity. But in the end, she lost the one thing she valued most: control. And as I stood there, the neighborhood finally quiet, I realized something simple. This house wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof that no matter how dark the storm gets, sometimes, ordinary people can outlast even the most ruthless predators. You've heard this confession, now wait until you hear the next one. The truth that shatters everything you thought you knew.